Guilty Gear Strive Season 3 is fully off and running, and with its massive list of impactful changes to both individual characters and the system mechanics, there's never been a better time to consider trying out a new character. If that character for you happens to be Anji Mito, you're in luck, as this guide will give you a basic overview of Anji's moves and what you should be focusing on learning as a beginner. If you're looking for more in-depth guides on Anji, hold tight, as those will be coming in the future, but for now, let's get you started on learning how to pilot Anji, and build a foundation you can use to steadily improve as you grow more familiar with his kit and his game plan. 5P is primarily Anji's go-to anti-air button at close range. It's fast, fairly low risk, and can even lead to solid combos when catching an airborne opponent. 5P shines far less in grounded situations, where it will whiff against crouching or low height opponents. 5K is a solid, if unremarkable poke for Anji in the mid-range. It's completely safe on block, making it a good low-risk option for starting pressure. Beginners should focus on confirming hits into 2D for a hard knockdown, or Gatling into 6H for a decent pressure sequence. Close S is Anji's only plus on block normal, making it the core of his up-close pressure game. Close S has lots of Gatling options, in addition to being both dash and jump cancelable, solidifying it as one of his most versatile and important normals. Close S is also Anji's preferred big combo starter, and should be your go-to button for punishing opponents who leave themselves vulnerable after taking big risks. Far S is one of Anji's key pokes for controlling horizontal space. It's much higher commitment than 5K due to its slower startup and long recovery, but it can consistently confirm into a soft knockdown. Far S should be used with a level of caution, as it only has 2 active frames and can be countered heavily by low-profiling moves. 5H is a powerful combo tool for Anji, and is his go-to launcher out of confirms like Close S, Far S, and 2S. 5H is also situationally a strong poke due to its long range and slightly disjointed hitbox. It can be easily whiff punished or interrupted if used recklessly at range, so spamming it is not recommended. 5D is Anji's only grounded overhead normal. When combined with meter, 5D becomes a viable mix-up threat in Anji's pressure. Charge 5D leads to massive damage and strong rewards, but it's extremely slow, has a telegraphed animation, and thus is easily reacted to. 2P is Anji's go-to interrupt button. At 5 frames it can put a stop to greedy pressure strings, and boasts very good range for a button of its type. Anji gets little reward on normal hit, but 2P can be Gatlinged into 6H to start pressure after a successful interrupt. 2K is Anji's quickest low, and is a low-risk poke option to check opponents not blocking their feet, as well as a modest pressure starter. Beginners should practice regularly confirming 2K into 2D for a hard knockdown. 2S is a powerful low poke that has deceptively good range and hits on both sides of Anji. 2S is a staple of Anji's delayed Gatlings during pressure. It can also be comboed into 5H for potent confirms. 2S has excellent rewards for a low poke, while boasting lower risk than 2D, and thus should be a move beginners look to incorporate regularly into their arsenal. 2H is mostly used as a frame trap or delayed Gatling to catch opponents trying to backdash or jump out of pressure. Due to its slow startup, it's difficult to combo into, and is mostly overshadowed by 5H for launching the opponent. 2D is a far-reaching poke with low profile, giving Anji a hard knockdown on hit and potentially massive rewards on a counter hit. Used sparingly, it can be a strong deterrent against opponents trying to force their way in along the ground, but its heavy recovery on whiff can get Anji into serious trouble if the opponent expects it. 6P is Anji's farthest reaching anti-air normal, and has a deceptively wide horizontal hitbox. The full upper body invulnerability allows 6P to effectively beat many potent ground attacks that are weak to low profile options. On counter hits, 6P can lead into strong confirms, but for close-up anti-air options, 5P is lower risk and offers consistent combos into Ko. 6H is a forward advancing multi-hit button, all of which are special cancelable. 6H can allow Anji to start some reasonable pressure sequences from low-risk pokes such as 2P or 5K. Its long startup and hefty recovery make it unwise to use 6H on its own, and it should almost always be cancelled into one of Anji's special moves due to being quite unsafe on block. Jumping Punch is one of Anji's least used buttons. As a beginner, it's suggested you focus on his other air options while you learn him. Jumping Kick is Anji's strongest air-to-air button. It has a very good hitbox, and is a common combo tool for setting up Anji's wall bounces. Jumping Kick should be your go-to button if you are heading up to challenge an airborne opponent, and is quite good at controlling airspace. Jumping Slash is very fast, and reaches quite far at a very favorable air-to-ground angle. When combined with Jumping Dust for more air control, Jumping Slash can be an excellent way to get to your opponent from an air approach. Jumping Heavy is slower than Jumping Slash, but when spaced right is a solid jump in or instant air dash button. Jumping Heavy can be difficult to use at first due to its hefty recovery, but it is the go-to option for Anji's safe jumps after a wall break. Jumping Dust is a very unique jump button, as it completely stops Anji's momentum in the air. This can be used to bait out an anti-air attempt, and let Anji force his way in from a delayed air approach. Jumping Dust is also a core component of Anji's bread and butter corner combos, as it causes a wall bounce on hit. Anji's throw is a very important part of his kit, as he gets excellent okazeme from landing it. Anji can enforce a decent strike throw game plan when up close, so incorporating throw regularly into your game plan is heavily encouraged as you learn how to pilot him. Suigetsu no Hakubi, better known simply as Spin, is one of the major building blocks of Anji's game plan in Season 3. Spin puts Anji into his auto-guard state after 10 frames of startup, and the button can be held down to increase the auto-guard window. During this state, if any strike or projectile hits Anji, he will go into an animation that's completely invulnerable. This auto-guard state will freeze the opponent if a strike was used, and treat their strike as if it had whiffed, forcing them to endure the entire recovery of that move. There are exceptions for moves that can be whiff cancelled, but for beginners, that's not something to be concerned with. Depending on how much recovery the opponent's move has, Anji can punish the opponent with a normal starter, or use his new follow-up, Midare. If Anji auto-guards a projectile, it's important to note that the opponent will not be locked into the freeze state, and can move freely to attempt to punish Anji for using auto-guard. Spin is not without its risks. It is in counter-hit state both on startup and on recovery, and will always lose to any type of throw. This means players will have to do more than simply look to auto-guard any situation that gives them enough room to try and use Spin. Spin is a huge part of Anji's neutral, having various layers of applications and mind games to create for the opponent. When just starting out, keep your auto-guard game plan simple, and look to punish low recovery moves like jabs or kicks with Midare, while punishing long recovery moves with rewarding starters like Close Slash. Midare is Anji's new move in Season 3. It can only be used when Anji's auto-guard has been activated, but by doing so Anji goes into a completely invulnerable strike that gives hard knockdown, and offers strong okazeme afterwards. On block, Midare guard crushes the opponent, leaving Anji heavily plus. When first learning Anji, if you were unsure what to do when successfully auto-guarding the opponent, if they are in range of Midare, it is almost always a solid choice. Shitsu, or better known as Butterfly, is Anji's unique projectile. It transforms upon touching any other hitbox regardless if it was hit or blocked, flying up and then falling down for its second hit. Shitsu will not travel full screen, and is fairly slow, but its true strength lies in its okazeme potential. After a hard knockdown, Shitsu will allow Anji to safely pressure the opponent due to its multiple hits, and offers him potential mix-ups to keep his offense going. Beginners should focus on using Shitsu exclusively as an okazeme tool to maintain the advantage after a knockdown. Ko is Anji's anti-air special, and a key component of his bread and butter combos. Ko has a gigantic air hitbox, and recovers quite fast, making it difficult to punish. Ko will only hit an airborne opponent, whiffing on anyone grounded regardless of how tall they are. If the slash button is held, Ko will become charged, gaining up to 15 frames of auto-guard during its startup, and launching the opponent higher on hit for better combos. Even if Ko is blocked, the second hit has guard break, keeping Anji at advantage upon landing. Beginners should focus on integrating Ko into their basic confirms, and using it as an airspace control option with its massive hitbox and upper body invulnerability. Fujin is perhaps Anji's most infamous tool, an advancing special move with multiple follow-ups that is a key component of Anji's gameplay and pressure. It also serves as one of his main options for combos on the ground with confirms that cannot lead into Ko. Before we go into details, it's important to point out that a common misunderstanding of Fujin is thinking that it's a mix-up tool. Fujin can provide some strong mix-up opportunities when combined with meter for Roman cancels. However, without meter, it's much better suited as a conditioning tool to help enhance Anji's pressure, rather than one designed to crack open the opponent's defense. Just like Ko, Fujin can be charged by holding the button down, gaining up to 15 frames of auto guard and causing a higher launch against airborne opponents on hit if it's fully charged. All 4 follow-ups can be used at various points during Fujin, and are available on hit, block, or whiff. They can be delayed all the way up until the final 6 frames of Fujin's recovery. They can be done immediately after Fujin hits or is blocked. Lastly, they can be done before Fujin's active frames. This technique is commonly referred to as Kara canceling. Fujin itself is unsafe on block, being -8 for the normal version and -6 for the charged one. However, the existence of its many follow-ups make challenging Fujin on block a risky proposition for the opponent. Because of this, you can sometimes simply let Fujin recover and attempt to steal a turn without using its follow-ups. Fujin is Anji's most complicated tool, so for beginner purposes, let's break down the basics behind each of its follow-ups and how to best apply them as you learn. Shin Ichiki is commonly referred to as fan needles, and is one of Anji's only plus frame moves alongside his close slash. Anji will fly into the air and throw a fan projectile. He can be steered by holding back or forward during this input, which will alter his position and the landing area of the projectile. Fan needles has no hitbox until the shockwave occurs upon them hitting the ground, which makes it easily contested and punished by jumping. This follow-up can be a powerful pressure extension for Anji, but it can't be used predictably, as opponents will simply negate it as an option by taking to the skies. Isukutobi, better known as Hop, serves 2 main purposes as a follow-up. The first is using it after Fujin hits an airborne opponent, allowing Anji to juggle and continue a combo. The second and more risky application is catching off-guard opponents by hopping at them. Hop has some lower body invulnerability and can go over many lows, but it has notable recovery and is easily punished by aware opponents. When first learning Anji, it's recommended to rarely attempt a hop outside of combos, as the risk-reward is very unfavorable without strong conditioning of the opponent. Nagia is Anji's only low follow-up, and the only one that can be made gapless after a blocked Fujin. Nagia gives soft knockdown on regular hit, and is a common ender for basic ground combos. Nagia is the safest follow-up to Fujin, and with light delay can act as a decent frame trap to catch mashing or jumping. Nagia can be punished if Anji is too close to the opponent when it's used, so proper spacing and timing are important when learning how to utilize it. Rin is the overhead option out of Fujin. While it's fairly fast for an overhead, it is unsafe on block and thus should not be used predictably. Kara canceling Rin can be a sneaky way to attempt a long-range overhead, but doing this adds 13 extra frames of startup to its animation, making it much easier to react to. Rin becomes far more powerful with meter, as it cannot be comboed out of without a Roman cancel. The threat of a fast purple Roman cancel makes dealing with the mix-up potential of this move far more frightening for the opponent. Overall, when using Fujin in its follow-ups, beginners should focus on varying both the timings and the frequency of which follow-ups they use to keep the opponent from simply waiting and reacting for a big punish. With enough practice, Fujin can offer a great deal of extra reach on Anji's pressure, and allow him better opportunities to exploit his offensive advantages. Iseogi, Sai, is a projectile super that serves 2 main purposes. The first is using it as a combo ender for unburstable guaranteed damage. This is mostly recommended for closing out rounds, as Iseogi scales quite heavily, and will not tack on meaningful damage unless the opponent has a high risk gauge. The second and more common application is using Iseogi as a wall break move, as Overdrives force a hard knockdown after the wall break transition. Anji really wants hard knockdown after wall breaks, as a common difficulty in many of his matchups is simply chasing down the opponent to start its offense. Kacho Fugetsu is Anji's frame 1 counter super. This is Anji's only true reversal option and can be extremely powerful when used correctly. If the opponent swings into Kacho Fugetsu with a striking move, they will trigger a full cinematic with extra damage if they are close, but only a 2-hit version with lower damage if they are far away. Kacho Fugetsu is a unique reversal as it's one of the only ones in the game that can defeat safe jump setups. It's also a very strong tool to deter opponents from using obvious frame traps or predictable pressure that has gaps against Anji. Kacho Fugetsu does not autocorrect, making it vulnerable to cross-ups, and just like auto guard, it will always lose to a throw, costing Anji precious meter. Kacho Fugetsu is Anji's most powerful defensive tool, and is an extremely important option to consider using meter on to keep opponents from running greedy offensive strings against him. Beginner Anji should focus on 3 main objectives when learning how to pilot him in the neutral game. 1. Getting into close S range to start Anji's strongest pressure game options. 2. Securing a hard knockdown via throw or 2D to start Butterfly Okazeme. And 3. Converting stray counter hits into strong damage and corner carry. When poking at range, 5K, Far S, 2S, and 2D should be the buttons you lean on most to contest ground space, while 5P, 6P, and Co serve as your go-to anti-air options for opponents attempting to take an aerial approach. Learning basic confirms or pressure starters from all of these options should be a high priority as you start out playing Anji, as winning neutral and starting his offensive game plan can often be the most difficult part of a matchup for him. Once you feel comfortable with your main pokes, incorporating auto guard into your arsenal will greatly increase the options your opponent has to account for, giving you more opportunities to close the gap, get a knockdown, or even heavily punish your opponent for recklessly poking with high recovery moves. Beginners should focus on 2 main combo routes outside of basic knockdowns such as 5K 2D. For converting long-range hits, like a max-range Far Slash, a good basic confirm to learn is Far Slash into Fujin into Nagia. This will net some decent damage and a soft knockdown, giving you time to ideally be around close S range to keep the pressure on your opponent. For Anji's bread and butter combos, your main goal is to route into Ko early. The most common way to do this is by comboing into 5H, which will launch the opponent. Close S, 2S, and Far S if it's at fairly close range will all naturally combo into 5H. From there you can do a charged Ko into Anji's main route. Practice this combo to get a feel for the concept of Anji's route options when close enough to use a wall bounce. This route uses Anji's best starter, a simple version of integrating the wall bounce of Jumping Dust, and a common ender to set up the wall break. Once you have a feel for these basic routes, you can experiment with different types of juggles, using meter for Roman cancel extensions, or learning more advanced routes such as mid-screen Ko loops. Anji's combos are not overly difficult, so once you have the basic concepts down, they're fairly simple to apply depending on the situation and the proximity to the corner. As an all-rounder type, Anji requires using the entirety of his kit to be played well in Guilty Gear Strive. With no singular dominant button or mechanic in his arsenal, beginners should try to get a feel for which option best suits a given situation during a match. Fujin and Auto Guard are powerful tools that can alter your opponent's game plan significantly. However, as a beginner it can be very easy to overly rely on those options. Remaining unpredictable and working to condition your opponent are key aspects of piloting Anji to victory, so remember to vary up your approaches and pressure, and you'll find improvement quickly following. Most important of all, have fun. Anji is an impulsive and jovial character, so try to channel that same energy with him, and be sure to enjoy the game while you learn. Thanks so much for checking out this beginner's guide to Anji. This is my first real attempt at doing a fully scripted and edited guide like this, so please let me know what you think down in the comments. If this guide was helpful to you, consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel for more Guilty Gear and Anji related videos. If you'd like to support me directly for making guides like this, feel free to check out my Patreon as well. Links down in the description. Speaking of Patreon, I'd like to give an extra special thanks to my patrons. My Master Fan Wielders, Dapper Wolf and Dastrin, members of the Fujin Fan Club, Adrian B., Anam Allison, Jin Halloway, Little Mayrose, Robin Avery, and Sam. My stalwart fans, Go to Velociraptor, James Hardman, Lolcam Alpha, Lord Hayati, Mark Supiel, Mirna, No More 8-Bit, Robert McCoy, Smilebomb FGC, Tetzetta, Tipo, and Zach Booty. And thank you as well to the rest of my patrons. The support really means more than I can say. Thanks once again for watching this guide. For now, be safe, be good to each other, and I'll catch you all in the next one.